You have the Times Events reel able to say this. That's the narrative. It was written. This is the perfect screenplay for them.
Also to Andrew Colvett, and he says to them that they are going to...
was not messaging people the day before saying, I'm going to be murdered, they're coming after me.
Charlie Kirk's final days are now being questioned from every angle, and the story surrounding what really happened keeps getting more intense. New claims, leaked details, reported text messages, and conflicting interviews have people online completely divided. What started as a tragic story has now turned into a growing controversy filled with timeline disputes, behind-the-scenes conversations, and major questions that still haven't been answered.
I'm gonna jump in here and tell you that's a lie. What we know happens thereafter is Charlie concludes this call with Josh and the rabbi, and then he sends off text messages to his security chief, Dan Flood.
Now, Charlie's mother is reportedly preparing to speak out, and critics believe that could change everything people thought they knew about those final days. From reported Zoom calls involving religious figures to claims about security fears, private pressure, and shifting public statements, the internet has been nonstop trying to piece the puzzle together. And the biggest reason people won't let this go is simple. The details don't always seem to match.
I knew that there were people out there that hated us with deep, deep passion of hate. But it didn't scare us. He was never afraid of that. Neither was I. Obviously, we protect our children. You know, we don't show their faces on the internet.
So in this video, we're breaking down the timeline, the contradictions, and the explosive claims that have everyone talking right now. Charlie Kirk's mom is finally stepping forward and speaking out after Erika got called out for allegedly twisting parts of the story. Now, a totally different version of what happened during Charlie's last night is making rounds online, and people are saying the receipts hit hard. What used to be low-key rumors in the background has now turned into loud contradictions that social media can't stop talking about. Folks are breaking down Erika's timeline piece by piece, and every detail is getting questioned. She already faced major backlash for repeating that Charlie was supposedly terrified for his life. And critics online are now saying the story keeps shifting depending on who's talking.
People know that Charlie sensed that he was going to die tomorrow is an absolute fact. Why these individuals are all being quiet about that is a massive question mark.
Now, some critics are saying she's completely changing the narrative, trying to paint herself as the fearless protector in the room while questions keep stacking up online. And that's where things start getting real messy. New rumors are spreading about a private dinner Erika reportedly set up on Charlie's final night. During that dinner, there was allegedly a Zoom call with a rabbi in Israel who reportedly encouraged Charlie to reconsider some of the public positions he had been standing on. If those claims are true, people are saying it opens up serious questions about what conversations were really happening behind closed doors and why none of it was mentioned sooner. That one detail alone has people seriously side-eyeing the entire situation and asking, why that night? Why that conversation? And why then? The whole thing looks strange to a lot of people, and critics online say the timing makes it even more suspicious.
If that was our last day, it was our last day. Like, we always lived as if it was the last day. That's why Charlie's speeches were so good. But again, it wasn't anything that, you would think any different.
Now, some are wondering if that night felt less like a heartfelt goodbye and more like some kind of private strategy meeting behind the scenes. That's a heavy thought. And it's only making the debate louder online. Attention is now shifting toward the receipts that recently surfaced and how Charlie's mom reportedly reacted after hearing what was allegedly being discussed behind closed doors. By most accounts, her response was anything but soft. People close to the situation say she didn't brush it off or stay quiet about it, and now the conversation is getting even louder online. It's been 5 months since Charlie's assassination, but the media spotlight still hasn't moved an inch. The attention is locked in tight, and people are acting like every new detail changes the entire story. Erika has been everywhere lately. Non-stop interviews, public appearances, carefully staged photo ops, the whole thing.
Erika and Charlie heard about these curses, and that news genuinely rattled Erika in particular. She knew Christian teaching on the subject. She loved Charlie, absolutely. And she was scared when she heard of the curses Jezebel had called up.
Cameras seem to follow her everywhere, and she hasn't really stepped out of the spotlight since Charlie passed, not even for a second. With every headline circling back to her voice, her emotions, and her version of events, more people online are starting to point out what they see as a pattern. But the question that keeps getting repeated over and over is, where are Charlie's parents in all of this? That question is everywhere right now, and people don't seem ready to let it go. Charlie's parents have barely appeared in most of the public coverage, and Erika hasn't really spoken much about them in public either. Instead, she focused on how her own mother supposedly played a major mother figure role in Charlie's life. That comment alone sparked a wave of reactions online because some people felt like the attention suddenly shifted in a completely different direction. Not everybody was comfortable with that move, and the debate around it keeps getting louder. Now, according to a source close to Charlie's mother, Catherine, his parents have been grieving the way a lot of families do after a devastating loss, privately and away from the spotlight.
So much so that she and Charlie contacted a friend, who I believe she said was a Catholic priest, but definitely a friend, and asked him to come over and pray with them over Charlie the night before he was murdered. She eventually worked it through, and so did Charlie. That, as she later told me, will form but not prosper.
No cameras in their faces, no non-stop interviews, and no public chaos. That part, most people completely understand. But this is where the tension reportedly starts building. The same source claims what's really upsetting Catherine isn't only the endless media attention, but the fact that Erika's version of Charlie's final days allegedly keeps changing over time. And critics say these aren't tiny mix-ups or harmless memory slips either. People online are now pointing to major switches in the story and details that reportedly don't line up with earlier versions that were shared publicly. According to those close to the situation, that's the part hitting hardest behind the scenes and causing more quiet frustration to build. Catherine reportedly believes her son was deeply shaken toward the end of his life. Not just stressed out or exhausted from work, but emotionally unsettled in a much more serious way. And now the part that has people talking even louder behind the scenes is this: an insider claims Charlie allegedly began questioning Erika herself and seemed uncertain about certain situations happening around him.
Huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave, be pro-Israel.
That claim alone is adding even more tension to an already explosive conversation online. That's not some small accusation people can brush past. Claims like that completely change how many are starting to view the final days surrounding Charlie's life. And now there's even more buzz because the same source says Catherine is reportedly considering doing an interview with Candace Owens to finally speak publicly and clear the air. According to insiders, the goal would be to explain how her son was truly feeling before everything unfolded. If that interview actually happens, a lot of people believe it could shake up the entire public narrative overnight. The reason this keeps gaining traction is because the same questions won't go away. People keep asking why the story allegedly keeps changing and why there are now disagreements over whether Charlie was facing serious threats or increasing his security before September 10th. Critics online claim that nearly every time Erika speaks, new details appear that don't fully match earlier versions of events, and that's what keeps fueling the controversy. It's starting to feel, for a lot of people online, like trying to solve a puzzle where the picture keeps changing every time a new piece gets added. And nowhere is that confusion showing up more than in the different stories being told about Charlie's final night. Several versions of that evening have now been discussed publicly, and people keep tracing those accounts back to Erika's version of events. That's exactly why the pressure and scrutiny keep growing. The first major public timeline came during her September 21st in-person interview with the New York Times.
First and foremost, I just want to say he's so full of crap. The idea that Charlie had just gotten back from Korea and was like, oh, please help me, Josh Hammer. You're a complete idiot. Please help me learn how to speak to college students. Josh Hammer and a rabbi who lives in Israel. Like, there was nobody else available. You know what time it must have been in Israel for him to organize this call? Why is he doing it?
That interview is where the so-called official version of events really started taking shape. And at the time, many people accepted it without asking too many questions or challenging the details. According to the article, the night before Charlie traveled to Utah, he and his wife reportedly had dinner in the Phoenix area with a friend described as a faith leader. The stated reason for the gathering was to pray over his upcoming tour across around 20 college campuses. The report also claimed that both Erika and the friend appeared deeply concerned during the dinner conversation, which immediately caught people's attention online. One detail especially stood out fast: the claim that Erika urged Charlie to begin wearing a bulletproof vest. That part painted a dramatic picture of growing fear, rising tension, and serious concern surrounding his safety before the trip even started. The article also claimed that when Charlie reportedly hesitated about increasing his security, the friend suggested he consider speaking behind bulletproof glass during the tour. That detail added even more weight to the story because it made it sound like everyone at that dinner believed there was a serious threat surrounding the upcoming events. People online immediately locked onto that part because it painted a picture of rising fear and intense concern before Charlie even left for the trip. At the time, that was the first major version of events the public heard. Clean, direct, and carefully structured.
With this rabbi, was it Wojcicki, whatever his last name is, you're not going to just call like Dennis Prager, who you're apparently writing a Shabbat Shalom book with. It seems a little suspect. So you're actually clarifying for us something that's amazing. This is a stunning admission, okay? Because we know that when Charlie got off of this phone call, he texts that evening a text message to Dan Flood and Andrew.
But now that people are going back through timelines and comparing later interviews and comments, critics are questioning whether every part of that account lines up perfectly with what was said afterward. And that's where the scrutiny starts getting much louder. Erika's original claim was that she and this faith leader, who Megyn Kelly later identified as a Catholic priest, were both deeply worried about Charlie's safety leading up to the tour. She claimed they were strongly encouraging Charlie to take major security precautions in case somebody tried to hurt him during the tour. That created a very intense image, almost like the fear of real danger was hanging over the entire dinner conversation that night. Then things took another turn on September 23rd when Megyn Kelly added a new layer to the story. She said Erika was allegedly deeply shaken after reading a Jezebel article that reportedly mentioned a so-called curse connected to Charlie, which only sparked even more online discussion and speculation. That's the moment when a lot of people online reportedly started side-eyeing the entire explanation and questioning whether the story fully made sense. Critics began asking, are we really supposed to believe one online article suddenly triggered all of this panic? For many viewers, that explanation just didn't fully connect. People pointed out that Charlie had dealt with criticism, controversy, and non-stop media attacks for years. Headlines, opinion pieces, and public backlash were nothing new to him, and he rarely reacted as if a single article automatically meant there was a direct, real-world threat. That's why critics started asking bigger questions. Why would this specific article suddenly push everything into high alert? Why would this be treated as the breaking point when similar attacks had happened before? To some observers, the logic reportedly felt shaky, and that's where the doubts started growing even louder online. Then came November 22nd during Erika's live interview with Megyn Kelly, and people noticed the tone of the story seemed to shift once again.
Totally out of context screenshot of Charlie Kirk being very upset that a Jewish donor was withholding his $2 million donation. And she used this as an attempt to say, oh, Josh Hammer's lying, that Charlie remained pro-Israel until his final moments.
This time, Erika reportedly said that neither she nor Charlie were afraid at all. In this version of events, September 9th was described as just a normal evening before another speaking event. No major tension, no urgent conversations about security, and no fear hanging over the room. That stood out immediately because it sounded completely different from the earlier account that described serious concern and strong pressure for extra protection measures. When people compare those two versions side by side, the contrast becomes hard to ignore. One version paints the picture of rising alarm, emotional conversations, and intense security discussions. The other sounds calm, routine, and almost business as usual. That noticeable gap is exactly why critics keep demanding more clarity, because many online are saying the narrative no longer sounds fully consistent from one interview to the next. So now people keep asking the same question over and over. Which version is the real one? Were there urgent conversations about bulletproof vests and speaking behind protective glass? Or was it simply a calm, uneventful night before a routine appearance? That back and forth is exactly why so many critics keep focusing on the timeline and comparing every public statement side by side.
But she's also holding aside that 2 hours after this screenshot, if you look at the timestamps, 2 hours after that, I and a few others were in a small Zoom chat, a small Zoom call with Charlie the night before he was killed, that Charlie organized. Charlie organized this Zoom call for the express purpose of trying to make sure that he had all the best answers, the best messaging advice for how to speak about Jewish-Christian relations and the Israel question on college campus.
To a lot of observers, the details don't fit together smoothly, and that's what keeps raising eyebrows online. And critics say this is where the situation starts feeling even bigger. In her earlier New York Times interview, Erika reportedly said that on September 9th, she was so concerned about Charlie's safety that she urged him to wear a bulletproof vest. People point out that this wasn't some throwaway comment or tiny detail buried in the story. That's a major personal security claim, and once something that serious gets said publicly, many expect the details around it to stay consistent moving forward. She also reportedly said Charlie felt like something wasn't right before the UVU event. In her own words, she claimed that his adrenal glands were just going off. Then she added, he got up and I could hear him eating something in the kitchen. That quote completely changed the tone for a lot of people listening because it painted a picture of tension, nerves, and restless energy late into the night. Critics online say it made the evening sound far from calm or routine, and that's exactly why people keep comparing the different interviews so closely. To many observers, those emotional details don't fully line up with the later version of events where the night was described as normal, relaxed, and business as usual before the appearance. That contrast is exactly what a lot of people online say they can't ignore anymore. Because if Charlie was reportedly awake, unsettled, and clearly on edge, critics argue that doesn't sound like someone casually going through a normal routine night before an event. So now the same question keeps getting repeated. Which version are people supposed to believe? Was he anxious and unable to fully relax? Or was everything calm and ordinary like later interviews suggested? Critics say those two storylines don't smoothly fit together, and that's why many believe the narrative starts showing cracks again when the details are compared side by side. And now, adding even more attention to the situation, there are reports hinting that something else may have happened on September 9th that still hasn't been fully explained publicly. According to Candace, the situation reportedly involved more than just a Catholic priest. She also claimed there was discussion about a rabbi based in Israel being connected to what was happening behind the scenes. That detail immediately changed the way many people looked at the story, because critics began saying the conversation suddenly sounded much bigger than simple prayer or emotional support before an event. Candace also alleged that on September 8th, Charlie sent a message saying he planned to step away from involvement in causes connected to Israel. People online pointed out that this wouldn't be viewed as some minor adjustment or casual decision. Given the political ties and donor relationships often connected to Turning Point, critics say a move like that could have carried major implications and sparked serious private conversations. If those claims are accurate, people say that kind of decision would carry serious weight and potentially major consequences behind the scenes. After Candace spoke about it publicly, Turning Point-affiliated podcaster Josh Hammer responded and pushed back on part of the timeline. He claimed the message was actually sent on September 9th, not September 8th, which immediately added another layer of confusion to an already heavily debated story. And according to him, after that exchange, Charlie reportedly joined a Zoom call where certain talking points were discussed and guidance was allegedly being given. That detail instantly made the timeline feel even more intense for people following the story online. Now, critics are stacking everything together: the messages, the Zoom call, the involvement of religious figures, and the political implications surrounding it all. When those details get lined up side by side, many people naturally start wondering what was really happening behind closed doors that night. That's why online discussions keep growing louder, with people comparing the dates, interviews, and reported messages while asking bigger questions about the full timeline. People online keep asking the same questions. What was actually said during that call? Who was really involved? And why weren't these details explained more clearly in the earlier interviews? When critics place every public version of the story side by side, they say the timeline no longer feels smooth or straightforward. Instead, many describe it as a maze full of sharp turns, missing pieces, and details that seem to shift depending on who's speaking. And this is where the story reportedly takes another dramatic turn. Candace claimed the Zoom call included a rabbi who allegedly lives outside the United States. According to her account, the conversation was not calm or casual at all. She claimed tensions allegedly rose during the discussion and that serious pressure was being applied in a very direct way. Candace also alleged that incentives were mentioned in a manner that sounded, to critics, like an effort to influence Charlie's public position on certain issues. People online immediately focused on that part because they viewed it as a major allegation, not some small side detail. Then came the reported message that many say completely changed the tone of the conversation and made people stop in their tracks. Right after that call, Charlie reportedly sent a text to Dan Flood and Andrew Covey saying they're going to unalive me. That direct quote immediately shocked a lot of people online because of how serious and emotional it sounded. If that message is accurate, critics say it completely changes the focus of the conversation and raises even bigger questions about what Charlie may have been feeling or experiencing in those final hours. Suddenly, critics say the fear wouldn't seem connected to an online article or a so-called curse anymore. It would point towards something far more immediate, personal, and serious behind the scenes. That possibility is exactly why the conversation online has become so intense. Now, the questions are getting even louder. People keep asking why Erika reportedly hasn't gone into deeper detail about the Zoom call or provided a clearer explanation surrounding the reported texts where Charlie allegedly expressed fear for his life. Instead, critics argue the public has been left with shifting timelines, partial explanations, and details that many feel still don't fully connect together. And critics say every new detail that surfaces seems to add more pressure and confusion instead of bringing real clarity to the situation. That's exactly why so many people online are now demanding direct answers and a clearer timeline. The scrutiny hasn't slowed down at all. If anything, it keeps building with every interview, message, and reported contradiction that gets discussed publicly. Now, there are growing rumors that Charlie's parents may not stay silent much longer. Reports are circulating that Candace could potentially bring Charlie's mother onto her podcast so she can finally speak publicly and share her own perspective directly. If that interview actually happens, many believe it could completely reshape the public conversation overnight. Supporters say people aren't just looking for drama or speculation anymore. They want transparency and consistency. They're tired of conflicting timelines, changing details, and unanswered questions. Right now, critics argue the timeline still doesn't feel fully solid. The details continue to shift, and the public questions just keep getting louder. At some point, people say everything needs to be laid out clearly so the public can understand what really happened behind the scenes. No spin, no confusing timelines, and no half explanations. Just direct answers that actually connect together. And if Charlie's mother decides to speak publicly, many believe that moment could become a major turning point in the entire story. Till then, critics and viewers online are likely going to keep comparing interviews, connecting dots, and demanding more clarity about the timeline and the conflicting details being discussed. Now, people are watching closely to see who speaks next and whether any new receipts or messages come out publicly. Every interview, every timeline breakdown, and every reported text is getting dissected online in real time. Supporters of Erika say grief can affect memory and emotions, while critics argue that changing details are too major to ignore. That divide is what keeps this story trending and keeps the pressure building around everyone connected to it. At the center of it all are still the same unanswered questions about Charlie's final days, the reported private conversations, and what was really happening behind closed doors. Until a clearer and more consistent timeline is fully explained, people online will likely keep debating every detail and searching for answers that finally make the entire story fit together. Because once stories start changing, a lot of people feel trust begins to crack. And when that happens, the pressure only gets louder and louder online. Every new interview and every new claim just adds more fuel to the debate surrounding what really happened behind the scenes. What do you think is actually going on here? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to comment, like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anybody else who's been following this story closely. And stay tuned, because this conversation clearly isn't slowing down anytime soon.